The tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, but stood out in the open plain and always got its share of rain. Never became a forest king, but lived and died a scrubby thing. The man who never had to toil to gain and farm his patch of soil, who never had to win his share of sun and sky and light and air, never became a manly man, but lived and died as he began. Good timber does not grow with ease, the stronger wind, the stronger trees. The further sky, the greater length, the more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow. Where thickest lies the forest growth, we find the patriarchs of both, and they hold counsel with the stars. Those broken branches show the scars of many winds and much of strife. This is the common law of life. This poem was written by Douglas Malich, born in 1877. He was an American poet, short story writer, and an associate editor of American Lumber. But to me, this poem's main message is, in life's voyage, we find our way through the turns and twists that lead astray. By facing forward and not looking down, we shape our future, we place our crown. When the voice inside has its day, the path evens, and we find our way. Only through test and struggle do we build and grow. We plant deeper roots for next year's sow. Our journey is framed like rings on a tree, marked by the seasons, some on bended knee. By facing the storm in blizzard and snow, we test our limits, our best rings grow. And in caring not what others think, we set ourselves free. We come alive. We find our ultimate strength. Welcome to the Authentic You podcast, a mixed potato salad production with your host, Goran Yurkovich. So, how's your energy levels these days? How resilient are you feeling right now, knowing that the dark, rainy days of fall are fast approaching, or that the cold, snowy days of winter are coming soon? In today's episode, I have the honor of interviewing Canada's very own Barnet Breathers. This is a group of men with an extraordinary weekly ritual that brings more energy, strength, and resilience to their days. And it's all related to something called Wim Hof Breathwork. Now, if you don't know what Wim Hof Breathwork is, that's okay, because this episode will explain it. We'll explain why adding breathwork to your daily routine is something that will not only provide you with incredible mind-blowing health benefits, but it's just going to make you feel great every single day. I'll also share the time I met Wim Hof himself, Guinness World record holder of many things, and how I somehow ended up in 300 pounds of freezing ice water, wondering if it all might end up in another ride to the hospital. And before we get started with the show, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with just one friend or coworker this week to help keep the podcast growing. And don't forget to check out the links to my new YouTube channel with must-watch best of clips of all the episodes so far. Okay, let's begin. And now, The time I found myself in 300 pounds of ice and my first ever Wim Hof experience, and why, if you haven't tried it yet, Wim Hof Breathwork is the must-add to your daily morning routine. There was a time not long ago as I sat submerged neck deep in a small pool filled with hundreds of pounds of ice that I'd wondered if maybe, just maybe, this time, I'd gone too far. I thought, Scott, what did you get us into? How much the hospital rides cost? And you'd think I'd know by now. But wait, I could do this. It was time to breathe. It was time to find out if the Wim Hof Breathwork experience was hype or if it was for real. Time to climb a new mountain and take on a new experience. But the question is, what is Wim Hof Breathwork? And what are its benefits? Well, the claim was that Wim Hof Breathwork had the ability to boost metabolic rate, improve immune system function, reduce the control and sensations associated with cold, create an increased meditative experience, reduce stress, and bring out your greatest sense of inner peace, and ultimately turn you into one kick-ass human. Or so I was told. Because if all of this was true, then the next question really became, was this the new must-have tool for the 21st century, or was it all hype? I wanted to investigate, and the best way to investigate anything is to jump right in, neck deep, literally, into the experience. So after months and what's now years of Wim Hof breathwork practice, and my very own in-person Wim Hof experience, including a 300-pound ice bath, I can personally attest to its claims. Better than any cafe latte or double shot espresso, the Wim Hof method will give you copious amounts of added happiness in your day. It will improve your thoughts and actions, and without doubt, it will give you a sense of power and control of you and your body and your senses that truly is remarkable. As for who Wim Hof is, well, you'll learn all about him, the Guinness World Record holder, in our next interview coming up. Because you see, the seeds of this interview all started back in the fall of 2018 when Wim Hof decided to do a world tour and traveled to my city of Vancouver, Canada. This is where my good friend Scott and I saw Wim Hof live, learning the Wim Hof method and his philosophies in person. The session included an introduction to who the man was, the science behind breathwork, and an instructional breathwork session showing us exactly how to breathe in and out, which lasted for hours, preparing us for what would be our first ever, and still for me only, ice bath experience. Because while our training continued inside with big inhales and big exhales in the Vancouver Convention Hall, over 300 pounds of freezing cold ice was being submerged into 12-foot round pools in the outside parking lot. To me, it seemed like an unnecessary quantity for such small pools, but what did I know? Then, with our bodies fully oxygenated and our metabolic rates increased, one by one, wearing no more than our swimsuits or short shorts, we slowly walked outside to fulfill the Iceman Challenge. Under the instruction and supervision of Wim Hof's staff, including medical teams, we gathered in small groups and lowered ourselves into the ice baths. It was the coldest moment of my life, where instantaneously all of the blood from my skin ran straight for cover to my organs to protect what my sympathetic nervous system believed was my sudden and impending doom. But despite the intense sensations, the desire to run for your life and jump out of the water, we were simply reminded to breathe. And breathe we did. In and out, each and every person held their own, staying in the water. This would have been a feat impossible without breath work. When your body enters into extreme conditions, the subconscious mind attempts to take over. It tries to force you out of the water. But we sat in the ice-cold bathwater for an entire minute. Okay, I know 1 minute might not sound very long, but, well, you'll just have to trust me on this. But there's so much more to the Wim Hof experience, from the profound to the superhuman. There's an ancient Eastern practice in breathwork most of us in the West still know very little about. And it's a practice which has been standardized by Wim Hof, which delivers in ways that you'll just need to experience for yourself. So now, without further delay, it's time we go straight to my interview with Canada's own Barnet Breathers, where we dig more into what Wim Hof is, why we should practice it on a daily basis, and just what all the incredible benefits are all about.
Got it.
Thank you so much for taking the time on this rainy Friday here in Vancouver, Greater Vancouver. This is our first podcast get together with some breathers that we've spent some time with over the past few years. I think it's been 1.5 years, Scott, that this has been going on, or how long would you say?
Yeah, it's funny when you say that, because it's actually, I think it was 2016 when I started doing it.
Oh, wow.
It was in the summer, and I started out in the winter, and Deepak came out, and then the summer, some other people came out, but most of that was alone. So
yes,
I'd say we're at 1.5 years now. When Richard, you started coming out regularly?
Yeah, that's about right. 1.5 years. Yeah. I think I started in kind of June 2021.
June 2021. All right. So I'll take a step back and just introduce you guys as well. So in today's chat, I have the honor of interviewing the one and only Richard Tunstall. Did I pronounce that right? Tunstall?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Who, it turns out, you've become one of the most consistent Barnet Breathers over the past year plus, as you've just mentioned. And we'll explain a little bit more when we say Barnet Breathers. We'll explain in a minute just exactly what that is. So very curious to learn from you what sort of types of benefits you've experienced from breath work, what they have been. I got a hint of at least one this morning in your ability to withstand that cold while I was shivering like, I was shivering quite a bit. And of course, also in this interview is my good and longtime great friend, Scott Jansen, who has gotten me into breath work, into a variety of different types of breath work. And I'll let you say hi, Scott, but I definitely want to go back to the very first time we went and tried Wim Hof in person, or at least I tried Wim Hof and we got to meet him in person. So you can say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. I mean, in terms of actually a good segue into that is thinking about all the interesting things that we both invite each other to. And one of them being this weird email I think I sent to you just saying, hey, do you want to go and see this Wim Hof guy? He's going to come to Vancouver. It wasn't cheap. Yeah. It was like a pretty expensive thing, but I'm like, it's a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
And then he shows up, and but the big thing is you were saying, yeah, sure, let's try it out.
my usual reaction to, and Richard, I don't know if I've told this to you before, but my usual reaction to Scott's emails, they're usually out of nowhere. It'll be a text or an email. He'll send me something out of the blue, and it'll just seem like the strangest thing. And there's no context. He's like, I bought myself a ticket. You should definitely come. And my first reaction is usually, what the heck is this? Like, why would I want to do this? And I'm almost a little bit like annoyed for some strange reason. And I'll ignore it for, I'll be doing whatever I'm doing, ignore it for as long as I can. And then it'll just be something will be kind of calling me like, what is this? What's this all about? Then I'll slowly start churning my way through it and researching it. And usually some of these things we go to, it's not, they don't have a proper website, and they haven't really, they're not really even talking about what's going on. So it's a bit of a leap of faith, but I would say they've all these kind of things we've gone to randomly have all turned out, I think, for the best. You just have to have an open and open mind, open to new experiences. So I think it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I was just really curious what he was doing down at the beach, and he mentioned this Wim Hof method, and I was like, oh, I should give that a try. I should try and go. And then it became a regular thing. It kind of builds a routine into your week. I was going through a career transition, and I think it's great to have a kind of a routine. Like I think when you're looking for work and you need a bit of resilience, this is a great way to get it. There was, the breathing's relaxation, and then after that is a bit of determination to get in that cold water and stay there. And it builds up that. And I think the way Scott is running it as well is that it's on a Monday and a Friday. It builds a routine into your week, and that's what I really liked about it, and that's kind of why I've stuck with it.
That's fantastic. And so how did you actually find out about it? So was it through a friend or through Scott directly? Or?
Just through Scott. Scott mentioned, and I think it was more of a case that, hey, let's just take the kids down to the beach, and this could be fun because the kids are about the same age. And we all went along, and they were looking at me going, hey, Dad, you look very red. So I jumped in the freezing cold water. And I think I only lasted 30 seconds, and that's in June. And I think you mentioned that now it's like 10 minutes today. And so it takes time, and it really does build up a bit of resilience. That's it.
So context for listeners on my side, Scott and I went to Wim Hof. It was actually back, if my records are right, it was the fall of 2018. We went
2016.
2016? Yeah. Okay, I have 2018. Okay, we'll do a fact check. That's crazy if it's 2016. I have 2018 written down. So we went and saw Wim Hof live. And Scott, won't go just a really high level up front, and then we'll go into it later. But we saw him live. He presented and gave us the whole breath work, what is breath work, what it's all about and all that, and walked us through the session. We actually got into a whole bunch of ice, and it was an amazing experience, but I never really got into it. But Scott really got into it right away. Maybe you did before, or it was just around that time that you got into it. And but for me, what's then happened was over the past year and a half, I was definitely inconsistent. There would be spans where I would come down to the beach with you guys. Maybe for a month straight, or maybe a few months straight, and then you wouldn't see me for a few months or many months, and then I'd start again. But I noticed what, Richard, like for yourself, you've been going very consistent, and definitely noticed that you can get into the water, and the water was 10 degrees, and you were able to get in, and you weren't shivering, and it was really incredible. You were just kind of chilling in the water.
Yeah, I think that's true. Again, it takes time. I think I think I used to shiver quite a lot, and I actually wouldn't talk in the water because I'm still trying to work your way through it. And now I'm feeling much more relaxed, and it really helps the kind of kick off the day and get you in the right frame of mind. I think.
How would you describe how would you describe how you feel after a morning breath work? Okay, let's talk about the two variations. If you just do a breath work session without the water, how do you feel? And how do you feel with the added water element?
I think I feel relaxed, like just with the breath work. It's there's a relaxation meditation portion to that.
Yeah.
And then when you add on the cold shock of the water and going in there, then I feel kind of energized after that.
That's right.
That's really how it feels. So you go from relaxation to feeling energized for the day. And those are the two things that I feel.
I definitely feel a sense of peace and calm from the peace and calm, whether it's just the breath work, but definitely added energy and energize and like just a much clearer head when you also are incorporating the water aspect as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so to take a step back here, I want to get through, and going to pass the mic to Scott here. I want us to go through three big major questions. We're already jumping into it, which is great. Number one, Scott asked me a long time ago, do a podcast on breath work, on Wim Hof breathwork, so that people can understand and learn what it is. And Scott, this has definitely become a passion project, or something even more than that for you. So I'd love to get you to help us on what breath work is, because you certainly know the most out of us, and you're even getting a certain type of certification, which you can tell us about. So that's the first question. The next one is, why did a bunch of middle-aged guys led by Captain Scott decide to go to a local Vancouver beach and rain or shine, start jumping into cold water Mondays and Fridays? Well, some have consistently and some inconsistently, but why have we done that for 1.5 to 2 years now? And the third one is, how do we all do a better job of prioritizing and adding breath work into our daily routines, and why should that matter? So those are the three questions I want us to get through. Let's go to the first one. And so, Scott, can you walk us through what breath work is and the different types of breath work that you kind of alluded to with the slow approach we took this morning?
Yeah. Okay. So the breath work in the Wim Hof method. So we'll talk about that, because there's prana yoga. There is, there's the Wim Hof method breath work. There's Kriya yoga. There's a whole bunch of different aspects of breath work, and they give different benefits. But really what we're doing with the breath work and Wim Hof method, the Wim Hof method isn't just the breath work. It's three components. You do the breath work, you do cold exposure, and then the third pillar of it, based on what Wim Hof is talking about, is the commitment mindset and the challenge mindset, to say, I am going to go into an area that I am uncomfortable in being. I'm going to stress my body. The word that they use is hormesis, as you say, I'm going to stress myself, and then I'm going to pull back and get out of it. So in a safe manner, just like you do with anything, like running or training for another event, you run fast and then you slow down so that you can run faster in the future. In Wim Hof, what you're doing is you're doing a bunch of breathing exercises into your belly, into your chest. So you're trying to fill your entire lung cavity with air. Mm-hmm. And then breathe it out, but have no pause in between. So just do that in a cycle for 40 times. Mm-hmm. And then when you breathe out and you hold. So you try to hold with having no air in your lungs, as little as possible. And when you hold that for a period of time, you get into a slightly hypoxic state. So you actually go on low oxygen level, and you train your body to deal with going to low oxygen. What this does, though, is it actually makes your blood a little bit alkaline. So, and you retain more oxygen at the beginning, just slightly more. I mean, we're really at like 95% saturation most of the time in our blood, so we can go up to like 98%. Mm-hmm. But then you see it drop over time, and you just hold and you deal with that dropping, and your body deals with it. But one of the benefits of this is that your blood becomes alkaline, and like with everything, with diffusion and going back to balance, alkaline blood will attract all the acids in your body through the cell, through osmosis, and it'll just kind of drain that out of your system. So one of the things, and I don't know if you guys have realized it by doing this, is afterwards, even though you haven't ate or drank anything, you sometimes have to just go pee after you do this. Yeah. And that's just your body just flushing out whatever was in your bloodstream at that time. I notice that quite often. It's just a byproduct of it. But yeah, that's the basic thing of it. And on the very high level, it's actually going into an area that is stressing your body in a safe and intentional manner.
Interesting. So it's cleansing through breath.
Yeah. I guess indirectly, yes, it is. Yeah.
So it's not just adding. So there's different types of breath work, and it's not just either energizing or calming, but it also is that ability to cleanse as well. So that's something actually I didn't realize, but it makes sense, because one of the things that I tell people, friends around that still haven't tried it, and I joke that breath work, like I mentioned to my neighbors, some of the neighbors see me leaving early in the morning for some of these sessions, and I tell them what I've done and they just don't get it. And I just kind of mention, well, this is yoga, what yoga was, say 30, 40 years ago. No one out over here was doing it or saw the benefits, or understood the benefits of stretching or mindfulness or any of that stuff. So I always kind of feel however I'm feeling before. Joe Rogan says, if you're feeling really bad, go have a workout, go exercise. No matter you're not solving the problem, but you're gonna feel better after. And like I mentioned to you the other day, I met someone who reminded me of this whole idea about energy, that energy exists inside of all of us. And then we have the ability to transform that energy into something good or into a form of anxiety or stress or something else. And so I think this for me is a transformative tool to take that pent up energy that you might have in the morning. Especially if you don't have time to go for a walk, to get any exercise, and to kind of feel this sense of calm, this calming sense of peace, or this energized sense of peace that I think you can get from it.
Yeah, so that's actually, it's really good that you mentioned that, because there's the two different things, the energize or the calming. Something that I was asking this morning when we were doing the breath work is just notice which nostril you're mostly breathing through. And I don't know if this is something you all know, but your nostrils actually switch off in terms of being the main one, and they rest. One rests, and then the other one does the work, and then the other one rests. And Goran, I think you mentioned it was your right nostril that was doing the work.
Correct. Yeah.
Richard, did you notice, or do you notice right now even?
No, I didn't notice at the time what was happening.
So right now, what do you think? Like when you just breathe in, do you notice which nostril's kind of taking in the most air or having the resistance?
Yeah, now you mention it, I do. Yeah, I can feel there's definitely more intake than from one to the other.
And which one do you think that is right now for you?
Right now is the left.
Okay. All right. So and for me today it was the right. And so one of the things that I've learned going through this process, and it's another book called Breath. It's another reporter that's just talking about it. The right nostril is the sympathetic side. So it's more for energy, if you want to be more energetic. And the parasympathetic side is the left nostril. So that's when you're more calm. And it's just a general thing that happens that, and you can't really control it. It's I mean, you could force it by plugging one side, but it's not something that you can really control, and your nostrils switch. So it's an interesting thing to just watch and learn more about body, and just say, oh, which side is breathing today? And am I more on the calm side or more on the energized side?
But I think when you mentioned that today, that was towards the end there, and we do like push-ups at the end. So maybe the left nostril was kicking in for an energetic burst of push-ups at the end there.
Could have been, yeah.
No way. That's really interesting. So you've got one nostril that energizes and the other that calms.
Yeah, it's connected to that lymphatic system. The lymphatic part of your system is that it's the right nostril is sympathetic and left nostril is parasympathetic. And I mean the short term is more energy and more calm.
Wow.
You could do more consciousness and more subconsciousness. You could do all those kind of different ideas, but go ahead.
So, but what is breath work? but what is actually breathwork? So can you walk through, for someone who still doesn't, so someone may be listening to this halfway across the world and be like, okay, well, breath, like am I just doing an inhale? Am I doing an exhale? Everyone does breath work all the time. So I've already done this, or what is it? So can you walk through specifically what Wim Hof breathwork is?
Yeah. So let's do it all together. I mean, you can kind of actually hear it on it, but it's really starting with, first thing is posture. So sitting upright, sitting straight, or what we usually do is laying down. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, and actually I did check my notes, and you were right, Goran, it was 2018 that we went, and it was 2015. And it was 2015 that I started listening to Wim Hof on the Tim Ferriss podcast and got me into it. So it was kind of like this a few years of kind of learning it. And at the beginning, I was just doing things really, really quick. And it was almost like I was hyperventilating. I had to do way, way more breaths to get the same effect because I was doing it inefficiently like that. But I didn't know. I didn't have anybody instructing me. I just did it.
Right.
And then the next step was actually putting my knees up when I'm on my back, because like probably most of us, we're not maybe the most flexible. And when we lay flat, there's an arch in our back, and we can't get the small of our back on the ground. So if you can get your whole torso to be straight, you can actually get an air cavity that's the maximum size instead of it being tilted. So doing that really works. And then breathing into the stomach. And I know we always say that it's kind of like, oh yeah, you breathe like a baby. It's kind of it's a cliche, but it really maximizes the capacity of your lungs, because you're breathing down. So you're breathing so that your lungs stretch out vertically. And then when you breathe into your chest, you stretch them out forward and back. So,
and you mentioned a technique where we put our hands on our stomach, one hand on our stomach and one hand on our chest. And what does that do?
And that just makes you feel that whole process. So right hand on your stomach, left hand on your chest. Then you can just visualize it and say, I'm breathing into my right hand, then breathing into my left hand, and then letting go. And when you let go, one of the things I have learned over the years is really relax. Like it's like a sigh.
Yeah.
And I've done it in some work with naturopaths. It's like holotropic breath work, but really sighing and letting everything go, and then breathing in again. It maximizes the benefit, because you're letting everything go, but you're relaxing at the same time.
Richard, is that the process that you use for breath work? Because I this morning sitting lying next to you guys, and Scott was, you could hear Scott really, actually there's Scott Carr on one side and Scott Jansen on the other, and you both of them were really embracing that sort of relaxed exhale, and it's definitely not something that I remember to do when I'm practicing it at home. So what about you? Are you doing that big exhale as well when you're practicing Wim Hof?
I'm breathing through my nose and blow out through my mouth. I think there was kind of a recording of like breathe in the good air and blow out the stress, I think. Yeah. And I think as the breath work continues through the session that we're working on there, I feel my breathing does get deeper as it goes along, and yes, it becomes more audible on there and relaxing. But I'm really all the time trying to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. That's really what I do. And even when I'm practicing on my own at home, and I tend to deepen the breath as we work towards those push-ups at the end, I'm kind of get psychology going, okay, now I need to really fill the lungs because I'm going to hold my breath as we're doing those push-ups. Yeah. And I'm also trying to challenge myself on those at that end point to do as many push-ups holding the breath and then as many push-ups as possible each time, like adding on. And that kind of, that's part of the kind of the, I think that adds to the breathwork process, that ending portion to it for me.
And to take a step back, the approach that we take, and I think I don't know if this was something that Scott you came up with or morphed or adopted, but the approach that we take really quickly, and Scott, you can help with the details, is that we use a Wim Hof app. And not getting paid to promote it, but I definitely own it. I think everybody in this group owns it. But with this Wim Hof app, there are these guided meditative exercises, and one of them is literally Wim Hof telling you to breathe in, to breathe out, and you have 3 rounds, 4 rounds. I don't know if it can go up indefinitely. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to see how high the number goes, but I think that we normally do around 3 or 4 rounds, and one round consists of anywhere from, I think, 30 to 40 or maybe more breaths. So one breath being an inhale and an exhale. So as Richard said, an inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And then it really is, this is where the devil's in the details of how much air you're inhaling through your nose, how much you're exhaling, and that process of relaxing. And then whether or not you want to energize yourself by breathing quickly in and quickly out, or to relax yourself by breathing in deeply and then really relaxing yourself as you breathe out. These are all elements that kind of transform the experience, especially I think by the 3rd round. It is meditative for me because I would say, just like, when practicing meditation, the first few minutes or the first 1 or 2 rounds of breath work, I do catch myself thinking about things. And by usually the 3rd or 4th round, my mind has been emptied, and it's just the breath. And I'm just kind of feeling the breath and feeling the experience and the sensation. So I don't know if you want to qualify or clarify anything I just kind of mentioned there, Scott.
I mean, everybody has their own reaction to whatever their practice is and what they're trying. And you can learn little tips and tricks. But I think the main thing is doing that breathing, doing 40 of them, and then really listening to your body to see how it reacts to it. When I first started, again, I'm looking back at my notes, I was doing like 10 rounds and I was doing it really fast.
Wow.
But I mean, that's because I didn't really know what was going on, and I was getting a different effect. It was actually more of a holotropic breath work thing, where it was a little bit hallucinogenic, and I was getting the push-up benefits, like that. That was, for your listeners, I think the amazing thing is, for most people, you get a dramatic increase the very first time you do it. And all I could do was 25 push-ups, and then I would collapse. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
The very first time I did this, I went and did it, and then I did 50 push-ups. And I'm like, I had it in my mind I couldn't do 50 push-ups at once. I just couldn't do it. And then over time, it gets better. And then like Richard said, and I think we all experienced that together. We were all trying to do it without breathing. And then I think I heard on a podcast somewhere, oh, well, do it without breathing and then breathe and then keep doing push-ups. And I'm like, oh, okay. Even more. So like your limit's like 70, and then you all of a sudden break 100, and you think, whoa, I couldn't do 100 before that. And then you can.
So I think that we've mentioned we're into the benefits, which is fantastic, as to why we should practice this on a regular basis, which is that 3rd part of this interview. So we've mentioned the calming feel that we get, sort of this peaceful calming that we get from it, potentially something that is also cleaning and cleansing literally our body of any of these toxins or bad. How did you put it? It was, so it's not just like creating alkalinity, but it's actually cleaning out whatever.
It's the acidity. It's basically, if you make something really alkaline, it will try to tend back towards neutral. So to do that, it has to attract some acidity. Yeah. And generally, we're overly acidic, generally.
So, and we're also, so beyond that, we're also pushing our body to a safe limit where, and by doing so, we can push ourselves and then come out of that. And just like any muscle, if you aren't exercising it, it grows weaker. And this truly is something that is helping us grow stronger, because there's some clear evidence in something we haven't even mentioned yet. So not even just, say, Richard's ability to go in 10-degree, Pacific Northwest, cold Canadian water and chill in that water without shivering or making any, heave-ho sounds like the rest of us. So being able to chill in that water calmly and being able to have a conversation over a given amount of months of doing this regularly. But even something more incredibly is holding your breath, the ability to hold your breath. So we haven't mentioned that yet, but one of the aspects, and maybe indirectly we've mentioned, but one of the aspects of Wim Hof Breathwork, and this again likely borrowed from ancient Eastern practices, right, is that we do a round of 30-40 breaths, and then we do, and this is the part that I forgot or wasn't doing for a very long time, I was holding my inhale and holding my breath. And you can hold your breath for much longer, but it's a different experience. But after those 30-40 breaths, you exhale all the carbon dioxide out, and then you're able to hold your breath for an incredible amount of time. I think the first time I ever tried, and just, absolutely never doing Wim Hof, longest I could do is maybe 45 seconds, if that. And then you start doing these 3 rounds. In the first round, you get to, if you're inexperienced, maybe you get to a minute. Maybe as you're gaining practice, you get to a minute and a half, and you can get quite often, I think many of us we can get up close to 2 minutes or even past 2 minutes, even on the first breath hold. And many of us have all gone over 3 minutes when we are, I think, this is the other aspect of it, get over 3 minutes when you're practicing Wim Hof and everything's kind of in a good place. I think it's also a really good indicator of where things are in your life, in a sense of like, are you in a state of stress? Are you at peace with things? Are you good? Did you sleep well? Everything could be fine, but you could have a bad night's sleep. You could have too much to drink the night before, or a bad diet leading up to it. So I think it really is this kind of like biofeedback as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, biofeedback and listening to your body. I always look at it. The benefit for me was really listening to my body. I'll put a little anecdote in there. I guess in 2015, I was to the point where I would vomit before going to work. And it was my body telling me, hey, this is a really dangerous place. It's stressful. It's not good mentally. And then my body was just rejecting it, right? And I was trying to find ways to deal with it. And I was just attracted to this idea of the cold exposure and everything. But what it does is it really allows you to listen to your body. And in stressful situations, you learn to deal with hypoxia, like you were talking about. When you do that breath out, that allows you to have a lower oxygen level in your blood and deal with it and go to the point, we've all had it when we're holding our breath, the point where you're like, you want to tap it, I need to breathe, but I can go 10 more seconds and then I have to breathe. Cold water. Oh, I got to get out. No, I don't have to get out. I can stay here. I'm just going to push through it. Oh, I can't do that last push-up. Yeah, I'm going to do my last push-up.
Yeah.
Then when these things in your life, like dealing with kids screaming or something like that, you can actually just say, okay, I'm going to be able to deal with this because I can. Yeah, okay, I don't think I can deal with it. Yeah, I can deal with it. I'll just push it a little bit more, and because everything you can go through, and you can go through the stress, and the stress doesn't overwhelm you. I found my ability to handle stress and the better way to react to it came through the Wim Hof practice. I'm curious if you either of you got that benefit out of it.
Richard?
I think it helps doing that practice, and then if you encounter a stressful situation like at work or whatever, just doing a few deep breaths. Like I know this is a fairly common thing to calm yourself down and just get into and relax, and then react to it is much better. And I find myself doing that now that I never really was doing it before. I know that it's a thing that everybody says, like, hey, before an interview, take a few deep breaths. But unless you trained yourself to do it, you don't actually do it. And I think this is what that's the benefit has come from me, is that I go, oh, okay, stressful situation, there's a trigger. Just let me take a few deep breaths and then respond. So it's helpful in that, the training aspect to it.
So it's almost helping us trigger the prefrontal cortex when our amygdala is firing, our lizard brain, and we're getting really agitated and getting emotional and overworked. And we're able to kind of pause and take and remind ourselves that, oh, geez, I'm holding my breath. I think if you ever look at a great film, a great actor, or just something that live and that's actually happening, somebody who that moment before they explode in anger or rage or annoyance or whatever it is, you can tell that person was holding their breath. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And then if you can, and I've got my another good friend, Craig Shirlette, who tells his kids, he's got 3 kids, and he says when he sees his little ones getting upset and they're holding their breath, he's like, blow out your candles, and he puts his hand up and they have to blow out, all 4 or 5 fingers. So it's just something that it's a great technique, especially today when the world's really been turned upside down in terms of how we live and our schedules, and just the amount of anxiety and stress that can exist in just not being able to do the things that we're used to be doing. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. And just remembering to breathe. You see all these T-shirts and signs, hey, just breathe. But I think a lot of people are not realizing how powerful breath really is.
Yeah, I think it's like going to the gym. The more you do it, the better you get at it. That's it. If you've got a routine and you do that, then it becomes like a reflex for an athlete. Hey, get myself in the mindset. Let me do this thing. I know this works, and you can get yourself in a good state of mind by doing it. I think as well, like combined with the 3, all the different activities that happen in those sessions on there, is just like the fact that you go in that cold water as well. You think, oh well, if I can do that, then I can do this as well. This is not surely if I can overcome going in freezing cold water in the middle of winter, then surely I can overcome this little thing. It doesn't make it can't be that challenging.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
So I think it's a case of the combination of things that Scott has introduced in those sessions put you in a good state of mind generally, and an ability to think, hey, I can get through this, or I can do this.
Absolutely. So it's a self-esteem reminder, booster, because it's pushing us to do something that we don't think we can do, and then we go and we do it. And that's a really good point too. Good one, Richard.
Yeah, I think the other good incentive there to go in there, it's where he's chosen the spot is a beautiful spot. So it's like, okay, you get all the benefits of coming down there on different days, and it never looks the same. I think that shouldn't be underestimated, that we're really lucky to be able to drive to a beach and it looks different every day you go down there. Like even on a blustery day with the rain, I think Scott and I were down there once, and we were trying to protect ourselves from the rain there, and we stopped doing that. I think we destroyed a number of tarps trying to do it, but now it's a case of, hey, now this is it has its beauty, that spot where we're doing it at Barnet Marine Park in all times of the year. That's what I really love about it as well.
You actually reminded me something in scuba diving that they teach you, is that when you're in the water, you're never going to beat the current. You're not going to beat the waves, and you just have to embrace them. So you're in the water and the wave may push you 4 feet one way. Don't fight it. And if you realize, I mean, this is how mammals and fish, they're living in and obviously in harmony. But when us humans, we jump in the water and we're not really aware of what that process needs to be, we're fighting against the current. And I think it's a really good metaphor for life. And this is a really good example of, you go to this. I looked outside last night thinking, oh man, how am I going to go to the beach this morning? The rain was just like, for those who don't know, there's just this, they're calling it, I don't know if it's like 120 kilometer winds and tons of rain, and how are we going to go do this? But to get out there, you just kind of embrace the moment and let it just become part of you rather than fighting against it. And it's just a really great way to look at life as well. Yeah.
And it turned out awesome today too.
Turned out great. And we actually had a nice pocket of, it didn't rain, and pretty much it was just a little bit of drizzle, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so I wanted to, we've spoken about Wim Hof Breathwork, but who is Wim Hof? Who would like to actually answer who Wim Hof is?
Well, I'm doing a bunch of training on it, so I can tell the story of Wim Hof. It's quite a interesting story. So Wim Hof is from Netherlands, and he had 6 children. I believe it was 6 children at the time, with his wife, and they were living in. Now they're not clear about this, but it's kind of interesting. It sounds like his wife was working and he was more of a stay-at-home dad at that time, and he was always into really interesting things. Like he was jumping in the cold water, but he didn't make it a practice. And he would climb trees and climb things and do all these really weird yoga poses. Like he could basically bend himself in half. So he liked trying out all those things. But his wife suffered from severe depression. And at one point she just couldn't take it, and she jumped off their balcony and committed suicide. And then Wim Hof was left with the 6 children to take care of. And you can see videos of it. He's just trying to like make sandwiches for them and just kind of manage it, and then manage the grief that he had with the loss of his wife. And he went into searching about breath work, meditation, and he just tried a whole bunch of different things. And through that process of trying these things and the cold exposure, because I'll go back further. When he was young, he was walking by a frozen pond in the middle of winter, and he had this urge to just jump in, and he just ran in and jumped in, and everyone think he's just crazy. And then he just felt so invigorated, but it was like a draw to him. And he's kind of like that. He's kind of like a guy who he thinks something, he's like, I'll do it. And then so in the future, he's figuring out this method, and he's doing a lot of things with cold. And he was called the Iceman. And basically, from what I understand, that's how he started to make money. Is the local news saw him jumping in. They're like, oh, you're crazy. We'll pay you to do this. Can you jump in this cold water? Yeah. For how long? Can you swim in cold water? Yeah. Can you do this? Great. Can you swim in the Arctic ice under the Arctic? Yeah, I can do that. And they'd pay him to do that. Can you run? Can you hike up Mount Everest in swim trunks? Yeah, I can do it. He did a marathon in the desert with no water. So he has just to qualify that, because I've got the stat up in front of me. In March 16, 2000, Wim Hof set the Guinness World Record for furthest swim under ice with a distance of 57.5 meters or 188.6 feet. The swim was in a lake near Pelo, Finland,
and they were filming it the day before the actual filming. They did a test run, but it almost ended in disaster when his corneas began to freeze because he wasn't wearing any goggles. And so a diver had to rescue him and bring him up before he lost consciousness. So he set that record, and like you say, he set records of fastest half marathon barefoot on ice and snow, lots of other stuff. Yeah.
And it's a really interesting point. The reason he set that record under ice is because his corneas froze. Because they had a hole where he was going to go in and a hole where he was coming out. And I think it was going to be 50, because I think they said it was 57.
Yeah.
And because his corneas froze, he couldn't see. And he was just in the darkness. But because of this method, he was just like, I'm calm. He's just like, I'm calm. I'm just going to go through it. I'll just keep swimming. This might be the end. He thought it was good, but he didn't panic about it. He just kind of swam through. And then he went past the hole. And then that's when, like you said, the diver had to come in and save him. Now, the interesting thing is, he's the first person to say this now, is that we shouldn't do any of this breath work underwater. And we shouldn't do it while we're driving.
That's right.
Be really safe. So he says all the things that he did, don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. Don't also put your full body in contact with ice for 1 hour and 42 minutes and 22 seconds, as he did to set another world record for longest time in direct contact with ice. Mm-hmm. Just insane. And then he also has one for in 2007. Wim Hof climbed to an altitude of 7,200 meters, which is 23,000 feet, on Mount Everest, wearing nothing but shorts and shoes. He failed to reach the summit due to a reoccurring foot injury, but that's still pretty impressive.
His choice, he says, was, am I going to lose some toes or am I going to make it to the top? And he said, I like my toes. So right. Yeah. He chose. But there's another interesting, he hiked up Mount Kilimanjaro with no oxygen in a fastest ascent through the breathwork acclimatizing, and then he brought a group with him and taught them to do that. Now, there's a whole book about it. That's another thing that I have here. This Scott Carney, it's a book called What Doesn't Kill Us, in 2017, and I read that, and that really got me into it. And Scott Carney is a reporter who went in to debunk the whole Wim Hof method, and then became kind of like an acolyte in it. And then he hiked up to the top of Kilimanjaro with Wim Hof, which was interesting because so he did that, but that of that group, I think only 50% of them actually made it. So some of them actually dropped off and said, no, we can't, because they were getting altitude sickness. Because most people take quite a few days. They take a week to get up, and I think they went up in 48 hours or something like that. You'd have to fact check the time.
Wow. I'm just going to pause for 1 sec. Just the heaters jumped on. I'm just going to pause for 1 sec. Guys, got to turn the heater off. 1 sec.
Okay. Have you heard about all this stuff anyway, Richard?
No, I haven't. I'm just an amateur of the. You're my leader on this, Scott. Like what we're doing on the Friday and the Monday. That's about as far as my interest, my knowledge of the topic really goes. Is just what we're doing, and I've heard a few anecdotes about Wim Hof from you over the time we've been there, but I've not really done any in-depth background research of what all this is about. I mean, I heard some interesting things. I think I mentioned it about swimmer, the benefits of going in cold water. I think I read a study, I think it was on the BBC's website, about they analysed a group of people, swimmers in the lake, and then people who are doing Tai Chi out on the beach there in London or somewhere. I can't remember what it is. It's some swimming area, and they found some protein in the people who go in the water. That added some, immune system benefits or something like that. So it kind of does, like, they said if you put yourself in a slightly hypothermic state, that it has some effects on the body. And they don't want people to say, hey, go and do this. So they picked this winter swimming group and compared them with the Tai Chi group who were doing it in the same place, who were nice and warm. Yeah. So it's good.
So you're right, and that's, I mean, you'll hear it. Joe Rogan talks about it all the time, but they're cold shock proteins.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, there's also heat shock proteins that your body releases if you go in the sauna. So and both of them are beneficial, again, in properly dosed amounts. Right. Because if you sit there and you actually get hypothermia, it can be like you said, if you stand in for an hour with ice contact your body, for most of us, probably even Wim Hof, that's detrimental over time. Mm-hmm. But for the short period of time, like 10 minutes in cold water, it's actually terrific for you. It actually makes you stronger and reduces the aging process.
Yeah, I mean, you do start to see what's happening to you and how your resistance to cold has improved. I think once I was putting on, I'm not really good with cold hands usually, but this has really helped in that. And I think I was putting on my ski racks on top of the car, and normally I'd be like, oh, I need a pair of gloves for this, I need this, and like thinking, well, this is okay, I'm okay, I can put in the screws, and it's cold outside, but and I think that came from doing this cold water treatment, is the fact that now I'm not such a, I wouldn't say a wimp is the wrong word, but I used to be really kind of like, I really need gloves here. But you don't. You can do stuff with cold hands.
But it's something that I wanted to come back to. I think there'll be listeners who go, well, we don't have an ocean that we can jump into, or maybe they only have a warm ocean that they can jump into. So there is also the ability, and I think Jorge provided this to us, so we should do honorable mention to Scott Carr and to Jorge. What's Jorge's last name?
I would have to look it up.
Oh, Jorge, we'll edit this part so it'll sound like we'll instantaneously say his name. Scott will give it to me in a second, or we'll just leave it because that's kind of funny. But so I think Jorge sent to us
Jorge Lobos.
Jorge Lobos, of course. So Jorge Lobos and Scott Carr, two regulars, definitely attend more than I do to the sessions in person. Jorge provided to us, or forwarded in WhatsApp, a link of what you just mentioned, Richard, was the benefits of this cold water treatment. But just by taking a cold shower at the end of your regular shower, right? I think the Scandinavian countries, they have this figured out long before us, if the hot and the cold, getting in the really cold water and enjoying the saunas but for us, something that we can do that's really simple is you do that, your nice warm or hot shower, and then finish with a cold shower, right? And we were talking about that this morning. What I've been trying to do is, even leading up to this Friday morning, because I knew that it was going to be cold, was taking a cold shower at the very end of my regular, 5-minute shower or whatever it is, and just dropping it down to cold. And then just kind of, Scott, you were mentioning what the approach should be of not just putting it on your neck or your shoulders or your chest, what did you recommend?
So one of the secrets here, again, we really didn't mention it, but it's the brown adipose fat that sits around the nape of your neck, right on the bottom of your neck. And that releases a whole bunch of warm blood throughout your body. Babies use that to stay warm. Babies are usually quite hot or warm when you touch them. And one of the times where I really noticed it was I went to this spa in Whistler. We're in a hotel. I was sitting in a sauna. I was getting really hot. And then I went out and had pretty cold water. So I put the cold water, I put it directly on my neck. And I felt this like surge of warm blood just passing through my body. As soon, you could really, really feel it. It was visceral because the blood was so warm from the sauna. But what the good way to do it is, when you're doing a shower, have a hot shower. Let the cold, turn it to full cold, put it on your head just for 10 seconds. that your head is, I mean, especially me, I don't have the insulation up here or anything. It's just the skin, and it's very thin skin on your head. So you actually feel it really quickly. And then you put it on your chest for as long as you can, and then just turn around and put it on the nape of your neck. Now, what you'll get to is a point where you can turn around and put it on the nape of your neck, and you can stand there indefinitely. You'll just actually feel warm. You won't feel the cold. But I've done it a lot, so like I'm used to that. But then when I still turn around and I put it back on my head gets cold. I get to the point where you get the like a brain freeze, right? So you'll always feel cold there, but back here, that's where you can actually feel it. Actually, the cold water touching it actually warms your body.
So I think then that's a good placeholder or bookmark for those who are interested in trying Wim Hof. And if we want to call this a bit of a recipe cookbook, you can go and download. One of the first things you can do that's really easy is you can go and download the Wim Hof app for free. You can try, I think he's got 3 or 5 free breathwork trials in there. So you can go and experience, he walks you through the breath work. But even if you don't have a phone or don't want to bother with the app, it's as simple as the recipe cookbook would be 3. So in the morning, I think the best time for me that I recommend, that I hear most people recommend, is first thing in the morning when you get up. Before you
eat and before you drink.
Before you eat and before you drink. So you get up, you find a nice quiet place to lie down, and you go through 3 rounds of 30 to 40 breaths. And again, 1 breath is an inhale through your nostrils and an exhale through your mouth. And if you're looking to relax, you do that deep and slow. If you're looking to excite, and exciting is also where we talk about feats of strength, right? So I think you probably get it on both sides of it, whether you're doing calming or energizing, but I think you get more of it if you're doing it from that energizing standpoint. So if you're doing fast breaths, it definitely, I believe, and you can correct me guys, I believe it increases your strength and your endurance to cold, or to ability to hold breath longer, or just feats of strength like doing push-ups. So you do 3 rounds, and then you're holding your breath between the rounds for, as long as you can, for 1 minute, 2 minutes, up to 3 minutes or more if you can do that. And then after the 3rd or 4th round, then what we like to do per what Scott's trained us on is to do push-ups. We do some push-ups, we do some headstands too, even before we close it out. So you can just do all of those in the comfort of your own home or apartment or front lawn. Your neighbors might have questions, but you can show them what it's all about. So it's as simple as that. You don't need a beach to go to. And if you don't have a beach, again, the next part is when you take that shower, you do that 30-second to 60 to 90 seconds of cold water, and that's just really, really is energizing. And there's, like you said, Richard, information or definitely like some numbers backing up just the health benefits of improving your immunity and reducing the amount of colds you get, and just other things like that.
And one other thing, just to point out, the real benefits from cold water immersion come if you get the water below 15 degrees Celsius. So above 15 degrees Celsius, you don't really get the effects kicking in. And we saw that over the summer. We actually sat there in 18-degree water, and you're kind of like, we can just chill out here. When it goes down below 15, you start feeling it. And when it's around 10, that's where you really get that benefit.
So it must be true then, like I said this morning, it must be true then, when we go to Croatia and we go to the nice southern coast there where my family's from, we sit in that 30-degree water, it probably has the same, or maybe not, but no, there's some good benefits there for sure.
Well, then you get the salt. That's the benefit you get. It's like an Epsom salt bath.
It is. The Adriatic is very salty. So shout out to any of the Croatian family or listeners from Croatia. Okay, so we're at that 1 hour mark, guys. I promised we would keep this to 1 hour. So before we'll wrap up now, but before we do, so Richard, Scott, is there any questions? I don't know enough about either of you guys or about your experiences with Wim Hof, with breath work. Any last kind of thoughts that you want to share that maybe I don't know enough to ask you guys about? Richard?
Nothing from me. I just think it's a great free way of relaxing and getting your head in a good space. And I think for me personally, it's been a great way to build resilience. I think that's what I really like about it. And yeah, I highly recommend it.
Tons of benefits. Resilience is a key word too, and it definitely is an add-on to that and so much more. Scott, anything you wanted to close with?
I just have to say how grateful I am for the camaraderie that's come out of doing this. Like the guys that we're getting out, to the guys and some of the women that come out for this, everybody really kind of enjoys it, and we've created unique friendships where people are meeting people that we wouldn't normally have met. So it's really unique and really I'm really grateful for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if you're listening out there and it's something you'd like to try, and you've got a group of friends that are brave enough, crazy enough to go for it, and you've got some cold water close by, consult your doctor first. But maybe give it a try. Absolutely. One of the most important things that's come out of the pandemic, the post-pandemic, that doesn't seem to be, I heard this quote today, what happens when you look at the end of a spiral and all you see is more of a spiral? Kind of feel a little bit of a Groundhog's Day here, where we thought it was going to end. And like you said, Scott, a long time ago, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So we need to make sure that we're still doing things and finding ways to connect and doing things that are good for us. So if anyone out there is thinking of trying this with some friends, this is something we highly recommend, and it is absolutely free. So you can do this at your own leisure, and it's not going to break any bank accounts. So, okay, guys, well, thank you so much for your time, Richard, Scott, and I'd like to remind everyone to keep breathing, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview with the Barnet Breathers. If you'd like to learn more about this form of breathwork, I've included a link in the podcast description to the Iceman Wim Hof 300 pounds of ice water experience that I went through at The-Inspired.com. It includes a breakdown of the steps provided in the interview for those who want to learn exactly how to do this in more detail. During the interview, we also mentioned holotropic breathwork, which is another incredible form of breathwork we'll be discussing soon in an upcoming interview with a practitioner and expert in the field. So stay tuned for that chat. I'm very excited to bring you that one. Okay, that's it for this week. Next week, we have more amazing interviews lined up. So thanks again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this show and share this episode with just one friend this week. Rate this podcast on iTunes and visit my new YouTube channel with must-watch video clips from season 1 so far. And wherever you're listening from, whatever might be going on in your life right now, don't forget to just breathe. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.